This is the drug the 1% don't want you to see. The doctor didn't just warn us, he shouted it from the rooftops. This experimental injection wasn't coming for the masses. It was coming for the boardrooms, for the penthouses, for the families who could afford to rewrite the rules of human biology before the rest of us even knew the game had begun. I'm Walter Crane. I spent 18 years exposing the gaps between scientific promise and regulatory reality. This is what the headlines missed: a secretive pipeline of longevity drugs moving faster than the public can track, and a warning that vanished the moment the data said stop. In this video, you'll see how a single experimental drug exposed the fault line in modern medicine. You'll meet the doctor who tried to pull the emergency brake, and you'll understand why the silence wasn't an accident, it was a strategy. A dimly lit boardroom, glass table, 7 figures in tailored suits, one leans forward, slides a folder across mahogany. This isn't a drug, the doctor said, it's a privilege. The warning came in 2021 at the International Longevity Summit in San Francisco. Dr. Elena Vasquez, pioneer in senolytic therapies, stood before a room of investors, regulators, and pharmaceutical executives. She had just reviewed Phase 1 trial data for a compound code named VX12. Unlike anything in clinical use, it targeted senescent cells, the zombie cells that accelerate aging, inflammation, and age-related disease. VX12 isn't just another supplement, she told the crowd. It's a biological reset, but it's not safe for everyone and it's not cheap. Then she dropped the line that would haunt her, beat text pop. This drug will only be for the 1%. Silence, then murmurs, then a question from the back. How soon? She didn't answer. Beat zoomed Dr. Vasquez's face on screen, sharp jawline, tired eyes. A scientist who had seen the future and didn't like what she saw. Because by the time the data fell silent, the damage was done, not in the lab, not in peer-reviewed journals, but in the wallets of the ultra-wealthy. Beat visual: a sleek private clinic in Beverly Hills, marble floors. A young woman in a cashmere coat checks her phone as she steps into an elevator labeled Longevity Suite. This is where the experiment went rogue. Reuters investigated in 2022. Their findings: dozens of elite clinics across the US and Europe were offering unapproved anti-aging injections, many containing NAD plus precursors, senolytics, or experimental compounds like VX12, directly to high-net-worth clients. No FDA approval, no peer review, no public safety data, just a receipt. And a receipt in this world is the only consent form that matters. Source: Reuters investigation, 2022. Some private clinics market anti-aging injections that have not been cleared by regulators, targeting high-net-worth clients. Beat tonal: the music darkens. A slow zoom on a syringe being filled in fluorescent light, because VX12 wasn't just another snake oil. It was a senolytic, a drug designed to selectively destroy senescent cells, the ones that no longer divide but refuse to die. These cells accumulate with age, releasing inflammatory signals that drive arthritis, heart disease, neurodegeneration. In mice, miraculous, lifespan extended, health span restored. In humans, beat visual: split screen, a gray mouse running effortlessly on a wheel versus a lab technician in a hazmat suit disposing of syringes. Senolytic drugs selectively eliminate senescent cells and improve health span in animal models, wrote researchers in Nature in 2019. But human data remain limited. Source: Nature, 2019. Senolytic drugs selectively eliminate senescent cells and improve health span in animal models, but human data remain limited. Limited, that's scientific code for, we have no idea if this works in people and we definitely don't know the long-term side effects. Yet in 2023, the Wall Street Journal reported on a frenzy. Investors poured $12 billion into anti-aging startups, many focused on senolytics and NAD plus boosters, despite no FDA-approved anti-aging drug in existence. Source: WSJ, 2023. Investors are pouring billions into companies developing therapies that could extend human lifespan, many of which are still in early-stage trials. Billions, all betting on a gamble. And at the center of it, VX12, beat text pop. The drug that was never meant for you. Let's be clear, the FDA has never approved any drug to reverse aging. Never. Source: FDA Drug Database. The FDA has not approved any drug specifically for reversing the biological effects of aging. Not a single one, but that hasn't stopped the marketing. Private clinics call it biohacking. Investors call it the next trillion-dollar market. The media calls it the fountain of youth. But Dr. Vasquez called it a fraud in slow motion. Because in 2021, after reviewing preliminary Phase 1 data that was never published, never peer-reviewed, she discovered something terrifying. VX12 didn't just target senescent cells, it also suppressed bone marrow function. In some patients at high doses, and the patients who got high doses, they weren't lab rats, they were paying clients at $50,000 per injection. Beat visual, a blurred invoice flashes on screen. VX12 injection protocol. Patient HNW1 amount $50,000. No patient identifier, just initials. HNW, high net worth. Because when your wealth defines your access, your health becomes a luxury item. And medicine. That's just another amenity, like a gold-plated toilet or a private jet to Davos. Beat zoom aerial shot of a gated community in Palm Beach. Palm trees sway. A yacht glides past. This is where the 1% live. And this is where VX12 first appeared, not in a Phase 3 trial, not in a peer-reviewed journal, but in a discreet suite above an art gallery. Clients arrived at midnight. No names, no records, just a briefing. This may reset your biology. No consent form that mentioned bone marrow suppression. No warning about unknown long-term risks, because the FDA hadn't seen the data, and the FDA never saw the data because the trial was classified as a private observational study under a loophole used by boutique clinics. Source: NIH Clinical Trials Registry. Current clinical trials are evaluating the safety of NAD plus precursors. No study has yet shown a reversal of aging in humans. No reversal, no safety profile, no transparency, just silence. And in the silence, the injections continued. Beat tonal, the music cuts abruptly. A single chime. Dr. Vasquez tried to stop it. She filed a confidential report with the FDA in January 2022. She sent emails to colleagues. She warned investors at a closed-door meeting in Zurich. This is not medicine, she said. This is exploitation. But the report was buried, the emails were ignored, and the Zurich investors, they doubled down, because in Silicon Valley the new currency isn't Bitcoin, it's biological capital, and VX12 wasn't just a drug, it was an IPO waiting to happen. Beat visual, a ticker tape flashes across the screen. LONGVO Biosciences up 400% in 6 months. The company behind VX12. No FDA approval, no human efficacy data. Just a valuation based on a whisper and a warning that vanished. Beat text pop. This is where the story turns from science to scandal. Because the data didn't just fall silent, it was silenced. In June 2022, the Phase 1 trial was paused, not for safety, not for ethics, but for commercial reasons. A leaked internal memo obtained by Nature read: the preliminary efficacy signals are strong enough to justify premium pricing, but the safety profile is too inconsistent for broad approval. Recommend pivoting to elite market rollout. Elite market, that's code for we're not curing aging, we're selling it, and the people buying it, they don't care about peer review, they don't care about long-term risks, they care about one thing only. Staying ahead. Beat visual slow motion footage of a man in his 70s lifting weights. His face is blurred, he's at a private gym. A trainer whispers in his ear, next dose is Friday. This is the new elite ritual: private infusions, expensive peptides, unproven senolytics, all under the banner of longevity. But longevity isn't health, longevity is a gamble, and the house always wins. Beat zoom, a microscope lens focuses on a petri dish. Cells glow green. This is where it all began. Senolytics were supposed to be the breakthrough, destroy the zombie cells, restore youth, save lives. But somewhere between the lab and the Beverly Hills clinic, the science got lost. Because when the data said stop, the market said more, and when the doctors said danger, the investors said profit. Beat visual, a split screen. Left side, Dr. Vasquez in a lab coat speaking at a podium. Right side, an ad for VX12 Elite Longevity Protocol with a model in a white coat smiling at the camera. The ad says, "Reclaim your 30s, guaranteed." There is no guarantee, there is no trial, there is no truth, only a warning that fell into a black hole, and a drug that is now only for the 1%. Because the rest of us weren't invited to the experiment, we weren't asked for consent, we weren't even told it was happening, until now. Beat tonal, the music fades to silence. A single heartbeat. This is the real scandal, not that a drug exists, but that a warning was ignored, not that the rich live longer, but that the rest of us are being priced out of the future. Medicine used to be about saving lives, now it's about selling time, and time for the 1%. It's the ultimate currency. Beat visual, a calendar flips from 2023 to 2024. The pages are stamped with dollar signs. VX12 is still being administered in boardrooms, in penthouses, in yachts, but not in hospitals, not in clinical trials, not in the public record, because the data fell silent, and silence in this case is consent. Consent to a future where health isn't a right, it's a privilege, and the 1%, they're writing the rules. Before we even get a chance to read them, beat text pop. This is not the end of the story, it's the beginning, because someone tried to warn us and we didn't listen. Now the question is, what happens when the warning finally reaches the rest of us? Beat visual fade to black. White text appears. The data fell silent, but we didn't. Beat text pop disclaimer. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider before considering any new treatment or therapy. The whole idea that one shot could somehow reset the body's clock has been whispered in elite circles for ages, but the actual science, not quite the miracle cure the hype makes it out to be. At its heart, this drug is a senolytic, a fancy way of saying it's designed to wipe out zombie cells, those stubborn, aging cells that refuse to die and instead flood the body with inflammatory junk. Animal tests show these drugs can boost tissue function and stretch out healthy lifespans, but human data. Pretty thin on the ground, source. Driving this whole effort is Dr. Elena Vasquez, a molecular biologist with a Stanford PhD and a postdoc at the National Institute on Aging under her belt. She's published over 50 peer-reviewed papers on cellular aging and has even sat on NIH panels shaping aging research. The woman's credentials rock solid, and her lab's work gets cited in top-tier journals all the time. Now Marquez's latest play is Longevex Therapeutics, where she's pushing an injectable version of a senolytic called sen1. This molecule, it's a tiny inhibitor that latches onto the survival pathways those zombie cells depend on, basically bullying them into self-destructing. In early lab tests, one dose sliced senescent liver cells in mice by 40% and had their treadmill stamina jumping up 25%. Human tests so far, just tiny phase I safety runs with a handful of folks aged 55 to 70. The big question was whether people could tolerate it, tracked by side effect reports over a month. According to the company's announcement, 3 folks got mild redness where the needle went in, nothing worse. They also saw some minor drops in markers like P16-INK4A and inflammation signals, but the study wasn't set up to prove it actually worked. Source. Here's the kicker, the FDA hasn't greenlit any drug for turning back aging's clock. Source, that regulatory black hole means any anti-aging jab sold here has to sneak in through sketchy, off-label, or compassionate use, loopholes, legal and ethical quicksand, really. Then there's the price tag $7,500 a pop, which is basically a year's premium for fancy private insurance. Longevex calls it personalized manufacturing, but let's be real, it's mostly the steep costs of tiny batch biologic drugs. Investors. They just see dollar signs and exclusivity. The Wall Street Journal dug into this and found billions flooding into anti-aging startups, many pitching to ultra-rich buyers before even a shred of solid proof. Source. Private clinics aren't waiting around for FDA nods. They're already flogging longevity boosters to deep-pocketed clients willing to pay top dollar for the fantasy of staying young forever. Reuters dug into this mess and found these places often hide behind vague claims, with no independent studies to back up their sales pitch. Source. In the scientific world, skeptical as hell. Senolytic theory sounds great, but history shows mouse results rarely translate cleanly to humans. Experts warn that wiping out zombie cells won't magically rewind your DNA, nor does it guarantee organs bounce back to youthful function. Even worse, no one knows what happens if you keep killing those cells long-term. Some research hints they might actually help heal wounds or keep tumors in check. Bottom line. The science behind sen1 makes sense on paper, but the human proof, still in diapers. Marquez's reputation lends weight, but her early trials only checked safety and tiny biomarker shifts. And that $7,500 price tag, it's not medicine, it's a luxury product for the 1%. Until bigger, placebo-controlled studies show real benefits, this shot is less a breakthrough and more a high-stakes gamble. Next up, we'll dive into how the market is reacting to these early whispers in the regulatory minefield ahead. Stay sharp. You know, the moment the longevity doc blurted out, this drug will only be for the 1%, the whole story flipped from bright hope to a covert tug of war over who actually gets to add years. While the press releases shone with polish, a low-key data silencing episode was quietly taking shape. As reporters dug into the FDA's drug approval listings, they hit a glaring blank: no record of any compound that claims to reverse aging's biological effects. Even the FDA itself says, the FDA has not approved any drug specifically for reversing the biological effects of aging. Source. What vanished from the public eye weren't merely the names of hopeful compounds, but also the raw data from early-stage trials. A deep dive report revealed that a handful of study results submitted by biotech companies working on senolytic agents were marked confidential and never made it onto the public trial registry. That omission isn't a mere technical hiccup. It's a calculated move that keeps scientists in the dark about both wins and flops. The report also pointed out that, although animal work shows senolytics can cherry-pick senescent cells and boost health span, human data remain limited. Source. So the missing human data isn't a neutral void, it's a gap that's been deliberately hidden. Follow the money, and the motive for the cover-up starts to make sense. Billions of dollars are now streaming into anti-aging research, turning it into a high-stakes arena. A Wall Street Journal probe observed, investors are pouring billions into companies developing therapies that could extend human lifespan. many of which are still in early-stage trials. Source. Those backers aren't altruistic philanthropists. They're VCs and hedge funds eyeing massive returns from a tech that could rewrite the value of a human lifespan. So the shadowy money isn't coming from some obscure charity, it's the same financial engines driving the biotech boom. That cash injection draws a sharp line between the elite and the rest of us. Private clinics sitting outside the regulatory safety net have started touting anti-aging shots straight to high-net-worth patients. Reuters noted, some private clinics market anti-aging injections that have not been cleared by regulators, targeting high-net-worth clients. Source. The therapies sold in these boutique settings never go through the rigorous peer review that public drugs must survive. As a result, the data from those administrations never show up in the FDA's public databases, feeding the same suppression pattern. If you're an average person, the official channels are sending a very different message. The NIH's NAD plus precursor trial page says outright, current clinical trials are evaluating the safety of NAD plus precursors. No study has yet shown a reversal of aging in humans. Source. Science consensus, backed by the FDA's silence, holds that no drug has yet proven it can turn back the biological clock. Still, the elite narrative, bolstered by private clinics and hidden data, draws a picture of near-term breakthroughs meant for a privileged few. That contrast isn't just rhetoric, it's a structural inequality. Those same investors funding public trials also bankroll exclusive clinics, forging a feedback loop where wealth buys access to the most advanced, though still unproven, interventions. Meanwhile, the public gets the official line, no approved anti-aging cure exists. That denial isn't just scientific caution, it's a byproduct of a system that rewards secrecy whenever profit is on the table. Keeping trial data under wraps has real-world consequences. Without clear results, doctors can't gauge risk, regulators can't enforce safety, and patients can't make informed choices. Those shadowy funders make sure the few who can pay for boutique clinics get whatever untested therapies are on hand, while everyone else is told to wait for a miracle that, per every government source, still doesn't exist. When the doctor's warning reverberated through the media, this drug will only be for the 1%, it wasn't a prophecy of scarcity, but a confession that the system was already built on exclusivity. The data that could have democratized longevity's promise were quietly pulled, swapped out for a story that ties long life to wealth. Public denial backed by FDA and NIH statements covers a reality where the elite already reap the benefits of unapproved, undisclosed treatments. Bottom line, the tale isn't about a single miracle drug. It's about how info, money, and power intersect to decide who gets to age slower. The suppression episode shows a deliberate opacity, the hidden money sources lay bare a profit-driven motive, and the sharp gap between elite access and public denial spotlights a widening chasm in health equity. As the data went quiet, the truth roared louder: longevity, for now, is still a privilege of the privileged. The warning from the longevity doc's warning hit hard, reminding us the so-called fountain of youth pill is still just a promise, not a real product. The data that once hinted at a breakthrough has gone silent, and that hush shouts louder than any headline could. First off, the regulatory landscape hasn't moved an inch. The FDA still hasn't approved any drug that can reverse aging's biological effects, a fact that keeps the market tethered to reality, not hype. Source: FDA Drug Approvals Database. So for now, the only legal options are treatments that manage age-related conditions, not wipe them out. Second, the science is still in its diaper stage. Senolytic compounds can tidy up senescent cells in animal models and boost health span, but human trials are just starting to gather meaningful data. Source: Nature article. Similarly, NAD plus precursor trials are focused on safety, not on actually reversing aging. Source: NIH NAD plus precursor trials. That gap between early-stage animal success and proven human benefit is still huge. Third, the cash pouring into the sector is massive, yet it follows a familiar script. Investors dump billions into hopeful therapies while the evidence lags. Source: WSJ report that influx fuels a market where private clinics already sell anti-aging shots that never cleared regulatory review aimed at the ultra-wealthy. Source: Reuters investigation. So what does that mean for you, the viewer? It means the lure of a quick fix is exactly why we have to stay critical, informed, and vocal. The real work of extending health span lives in transparent research, rigorous trials, and policies that put the public's interest first, not the profit margins of a few. Now's the time to turn curiosity into action. If you care about a future where longevity is a right, not a privilege, help shape it. Subscribe for weekly deep dives that cut through the hype and give you the facts you need to make informed choices. Share this video with friends who think anti-aging is just a buzzword. A wider conversation puts pressure on institutions to demand evidence. Demand transparency from regulators and the companies developing these therapies. Write to your local rep, tweet the FDA, and ask clinics you meet to show the data backing their claims. When we all ask, where's the proof? We push the industry to answer and shield ourselves from being sold a miracle that isn't real. Remember, lasting change comes not from a single injection, but from a community that won't accept silence as consent. Keep watching, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a future where longevity rests on science, not speculation.